Because cooking in convection retains so much moisture, it is the ideal mode for cooking large cuts of meat, such as a standing rib roast. Of course, most recipes do not give guidelines for roasting in convection, so I'm going to give you some tips for success to guide you along. Now, if you're cooking a bone-in roast, it's actually fine to place the meat directly on the pan because only the bone will touch the pan. Boneless roasts, on the other hand, need to be on a rack in a shallow pan. Otherwise, the heat of the pan will leach moisture from the meat and the fan can pick that up and whoosh. Now, it's not easy to find shallow roasting pans with racks, but you can use any rack that will fit in a rimmed baking sheet or even a shallow casserole pan. Remember, convection circulates heat around the oven, cooking the food from the edge to the center. So for best results, use high heat for the searing step and low heat for the cooking to avoid overcooked edges and an underdone interior. There are several different methods for cooking a rib roast in convection. In the traditional method, I cook this bone-in roast in the convection roast mode at 425 degrees for 15 minutes. Then reduce the temperature to 325 for the remainder of the cooking time. And I use the oven meat probe to monitor the internal temperature. I cook the meat to 130 degrees and let it rest for 20 minutes before carving. In the low temperature roast mode, I cook this boneless roast at 200 degrees in the convection roast mode for approximately an hour and a half. Then I removed it from the oven and set it aside to rest for 20 minutes. As you can see, it doesn't look very appealing when it's cooked at that low temperature, but just prior to serving, I'll put it back in the oven for approximately 12 to 15 minutes at 425 to give it a nice sear. So then you have that perfect combination of flavorful, perfectly cooked meat with a delicious crust. You will notice that the meat cooked in the low temperature mode is uniformly pink all the way through. This bright reddish color is a characteristic of meats cooked at lower temperatures because they retain more of their natural juices. So to avoid confusion when roasting a standing rib or prime rib roast, follow the recipe for seasoning. Be sure to let the roast sit outside the refrigerator for an hour or two before cooking. Use your oven meat probe if your oven has one, or keep an instant read thermometer handy to check the progress of the cooking. One final tip. Every time you open that oven door, the internal temperature drops by approximately 50 degrees. So for best results, let convection work its magic to cook your roast to perfection undisturbed.